Ladies and gentlemen, your hosts, Lorelei and Space Deviant.
I came to realize I wouldn't be able to properly compare The Last Man on Earth from 1964.
You're whistling past the graveyard.
Is that a commentary on my work at the lab?
Omega Man 1971.
Hi, big brother. How's your ass?
And I Am Legend from 2007.
My name is Robert Neville. I'm a survivor living in New York City.
Without reading the original 1954 novel by Richard Matheson. After reading the I Am Legend story, I have decided that all three sets of movie makers were absolute cowards in their approach to telling this story.
Of course you're a coward!
Yes, but I'm a militant coward.
The core themes were all but erased. To surmise the plot,
the story begins at month 5 into the worldwide epidemic.
December 1965. Is that all it has been since I inherited the world? Only 3 years.
It ends at year 3. Our main character, Neville, knows the plague is a bacteria that turns people into a kind of vampire.
What's happening, Mini-Star?
But in each movie, Ruth, our love interest, has been either altered or erased entirely. Apparently, it's just too much to have our leading lady turn out to be a traitorous vampire spy.
I've got you now.
Well, enjoy yourself.
Now, so far as to which movie is the closest to the original story would be The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price.
Yeah, I own the world. An empty, dead, silent world.
Although Vincent Price himself was utterly miscast.
She's so amusing.
The actor who most resembles Neville is Charleton Heston.
And Speedy Bob Neville, his great legs churning, goes flashing across the finish line with a 3-minute and 50-second mile. Go ahead, I want to see some son of a bitch beat that.
Blonde, fit, mid to late 30s, and had served in Panama. Also, alcoholic, impulsive, listless, prone to depression, with violent outbursts. The book character stomps a shoddy microscope to pieces and comments about running out of whiskey tumblers because he'd shattered so many of them against the living room wall. This book was written in a post-war era with the kind of moral nihilism that lays like a greasy film of dispirited apathy.
They can't bear to see their image. It repels them. I need more mirrors.
You can feel it on almost all of the 1950s literature once you begin to look for it. Religion is only briefly flirted with in the book, like a potential mistress he's deeply desirous of, but can't quite bring himself to fully look upon.
The stories you heard about the Black Cross are true.
Other than a flashback scene of a tent revival, where he writes the religious as wild-eyed people, futilely groping for hope where there is none.
Love of God by coming up here and putting $1 in the boxer. Come on, don't be shy. Come on now.
The most interesting aspect of the entire book is the idea that the vampires are repelled by certain religious objects.
It's a cross.
It's a fascinating idea, and it's only briefly explored.
The cross, held one in hand, gold and shiny in the morning sun. This too drove the vampires away. Why? Was there a logical answer? Something he could accept without slipping on the banana peels of mysticism?
The power of Christ compels you.
Does it, Jay?
The power of Christ compels you.
Is the power of Christ compelling me? Is that what's happening?
The power of Christ compels you.
Guess what? It's not that compelling.
Jay?
The banana peels of mysticism. Remember, this was the only acceptable attitude towards religion post-war. Atheistic apathy. Is it any wonder why our culture has slid down the slippery slope of postmodern ideology?
Your new society sounds charming.
In the book, Ben Cortman, who was his ride to work pre-plague.
Ben, what's the matter with you?
Nothing, and I'm going to keep it that way.
Is described as a chubby Jewish fellow. When he becomes one of the infected vampires, he doesn't fear the shiny gold cross, but he does fear the Torah. It's a beautiful concept, but he barely lifts the skirt on exploring those themes. Not one of the 3 movies even begins to broach the religious topic. Now, there are 2 types of vampires in Matheson's novel. The original vampire is a kind of savage, animalistic creature.
Their need was their only motivation.
He describes them as having no union amongst themselves, simply bloodthirsty monsters.
So much trouble to my master. So much trouble.
There's a second type of vampire that emerges later on in the story from a mutation in the bacteria. These are the evolved vampires. Revolutionary vampires.
To put it in perspective, if we think in the era of 1954, a huge leap isn't needed to see the allegory he's making between the emerging communists and the revolutionary vampires.
In the story, after 3 years of hunting vampires alone, Neville sees Ruth.
Wait, I'm not gonna hurt you, can't you understand? Wait!
He runs her down and gives her the old mid-century slap and shake and drags her back to his house in an unambiguously dark, I know what's best for you kidnapping. It's clear that the writer knows that what this main character is doing is fundamentally uncool. Ruth, described as a ginger waif in her early 20s, beds Neville, and when he later learns she is one of the infected, she wallops him with a mallet and makes her escape. She leaves him a note detailing her betrayal, going so far as to leave Neville, ever the scientist, one of the pills the evolved vamps had concocted as an antibacterial vampire treatment.
We've had it for some time now.
We?
There are quite a number of us.
Warning him that the new vampire black shirts were coming for him, telling him to flee to the mountains and hide.
You can't join us. You're a monster to them. Why do you think I ran when I saw you? Even though I was assigned to spy on you. Because I was so terrified of what I'd heard about you. You're a legend in the city, moving by day instead of night. Leaving as evidence of your existence bloodless corpses. Many of the people you destroyed were still alive. Many of them were loved ones of the people in my group.
I didn't know.
Here's where I prefer the attitude of the Charleton Heston Neville to that of the book Neville.
In the 1971's Mega Man, Heston's Neville has the fantastic line explaining why he didn't move out of his original home.
Still, you know, if it was me, I'd be living on top of City Hall or better than that, the Oxy Tower, instead of that pillbox I hear you're in.
Well, that's where I live. It's where I used to live. It's where I'm gonna live, and not Matthias, nor his family, nor any other son of a bitch is gonna make me leave.
Amerika core, in a way that gives me tingles of patriotism. Wolverines! But in the book, Neville remains at his home and is captured for execution by the new vamps. Not out of defiance, but out of a kind of passivity. I couldn't, he muttered. I almost went several times. Once, I even packed and started out, but I couldn't. I couldn't go. I was just too used to the house. It was a habit. Just like the habit of living. I got used to it. I hate that. And it's honest. It's appropriate for the book and the character that the author invented. And it has the desolate reek of beatnik vomit.
She's kind of a beatnik, isn't she?
Well, if that means happily broke and full of all kind of crazy principles, that's what she is.
I hate it. The book ends with Neville watching with tears streaming down his face as his old buddy turned vampire nemesis, Benny, who he has unsuccessfully hunted for 3 years, being summarily executed by the squad of gangster vampires. Initially, Neville plans to peaceably surrender to these revolutionaries, but then becomes spooked as they break into his home, and the scene becomes violent. The book ends with a captured, badly beaten Neville being visited by Ruth just before his execution. She slips him pain pills.
Drink this. It will dull your pain.
And the book ends with Neville accepting his dark fate.
He was an invisible specter who had left for evidence of his existence, the bloodless bodies of their loved ones. He understood what they felt and did not hate them.
Now you know what we are. Now you know what you are.
The post-war Western Depression, and deciding that it was better to let your culture slip quietly into that good night rather than to fight for what our ancestors spent the better part of 2,000 years creating.
All of us!
Never give up, never surrender.
In the 1964 movie, I don't think they could tell the real story for a couple reasons. One, the golden era of Hollywood was far more pinko than modern anti-McCarthyism revisionist history would have us believe.
So much of the old pinko pre-bird influence to suit me.
Ergo, they didn't want to show the Bolshevik vampires for what they really were. Second, with the Hays Code, you could not have shown Ruth as a manipulative vampire Black Widow.
You're such a beast.
In the book, she was a powerful ranking officer in the new society. Matheson describes her looming over the condemned Neville. Her smile was the tight, forced smile of a woman who is trying to forego being a woman in favor of her dedication.
Cindy the Clown!
In the 1964 Last Man on Earth, the movie ends with a Vincent Price draped over the bier of his dead wife, somewhat in line with the book's depressing, amoral ending, but not brave enough to make either Neville or Ruth contemptible and truly stick the landing. At least a version of Ruth makes it into this movie. She is summarily erased from following films. In Omega Man, Ruth is replaced by Lisa, a hypersexual, jive-talking exploitation character.
It's okay, Tommy. This is the man, and I mean the man. But he's cool. It's okay.
It's cringy, and it has aged about as poorly as possible. Not the actress's fault, but...
Your move.
I just made my move.
Yikes. They also invent a med student with an aggravating jacket and a horde of random children that simply never existed in the original story.
Christ, you could save the world.
The 1971 movie turns Neville into a blatant sacrificial Christ of science.
The Will Smith version has almost nothing in common with the original book, instead choosing to modernize the Charleton Heston Omega Man Christ as scientist story.
6 billion people on Earth when the infection hit. KV had a 90% kill rate. That's 5.4 billion people dead, crashed and bled out dead.
But it does include two of the most loathsome and overused tropes in modern movie making. The girl who is the key to everything.
The world is quieter now. You just have to listen. If we listen, we can hear God's plan.
And the noble, misunderstood savage.
Pupils fully dilated.
Who is perfect just the way they are and doesn't need to be fixed, healed, or civilized.
I'm sorry.
At least the Will Smith movie isn't completely nihilistic.
He believed that you could cure racism and hate, literally cure it, by injecting music and love into people's lives.
And that's something.
Side note, you know what looks like shit? CGI from 2007's I Am Legend.
You know what still looks absolutely amazing? Prosthetics and makeup work from 1985's Legend. Just putting that out there.
They each had their own ups and downs. Maybe except for the Will Smith. I Am Legend.
And this is not an insult necessarily to Will Smith's acting.
Oh, that's right.
He gave them what they wanted.
He gave them what they wanted. Okay.
And they wanted dour.
I was saving that bacon.
The main character, it was so easy to hate. There was a dog in the book, but it was sick and he was trying to coax it and tame it, and then...
Oh, they're out there, don't you? You poor, driven thing.
Okay, you know I'll cry over anything. And I didn't cry over the dog when it died because they didn't write it in such a way where you were empathetic. You didn't feel the guy fall in love with the dog. It was all had a kind of scientific experiment control thing. It was the same as when he dragged Ruth back to his house. Whoa, I know this is 1954, but you can tell by the way it's written, even with his, mid-century sensibilities. Oh, yeah, he's straight up just caveman dragging her back. So I think it's trying to set us up, not feel bad for him.
Yeah, the I Am Legend, they flipped the script and they had it where the woman saves the guy by, she saves him after the car accident, basically him giving up. Well, the only one they did accurately with him doing the woodworking, making all the steak, they did follow that in the movie. Yep. There's a lot of things they followed closer in the older film.
Yeah, they just sidestepped all the communism.
I mean, none of them did I burnt down all my neighbors' houses so they couldn't climb up on it.
We'll burn it down.
Clearest thing, and they didn't do it in any of the movies. And it wouldn't have been that hard, even if you did it with models. The original wild, savage vampires, which he's lusty about too. They never talk about him being horny for all the girl vampires all the time.
Let me ask you a question. When you were stabbing that vampire in there, did you get a little wood?
Mahogany.
Excuse me?
Ebony.
What?
Teak.
Are you possessed by demons?
Again, I understand the 50s one, it would haze Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then they made them just so gross in the Will Smith one that you couldn't really sexualize them. Translucent ghost monsters.
They made them, it was all CGI to the point where they were basically supposed to be like vampires, fast vampires that are super strong, can just flip cars over without, hardly an attempt. They have their 50-pound, their 100-pound bodies that they can flip over a car. Okay.
At least in the books, being a vampire didn't make you super strong. If anything, it made you a little less coordinated.
Yeah, both the first two, they were almost zombie vampires.
They're so slow.
But it was their numbers. And that's how it should be. It should be, this is a lesser creature that when you're one-on-one, I can take one of these for the most part. But when there's 50 of them, you have to outsmart them. It's good that they're slow. Oh, I'm still so mad they didn't touch on the religion stuff. I would have had so much fun with that.
Your point on that and on beatniks and at the time fighting the communists.
What would you do if I told you your pinko commie mother's her face was like...
So that was a lot of what the book was really about. It was going after communism, and I would say it was actually pro religion, loosely, because they hinted at using those objects.
I'll grant you that he was as pro religion as a post-war super depressed atheist veteran could be.
The fact that they even implied it's at least selling to the people to the Christian peoples.
The banana peels of mysticism. I nearly chucked the book across the room when I read that. I underlined it super angry style. Ooh, that is disrespectful.
Come on, I ain't asking for the world here. I'm just asking for an 8-ball and $2 million.
If it was the case, I would have my house. Well, one, I'd break into all the jewelry stores just to for fun. But why wouldn't you have your whole place decked out like it's a Christmas tree of crucifixes year round, just dangling and glinting in the moonlight every such which way?
Never touch the crosses. Never.
Because he wasn't going to sell into it,
That's the thing. It was like he was too much of a coward.
Soldier, what's your assignment?
To string lights, sir.
And what the hell are you doing? Answer!
Silver crosses, sir. There's talk among the men. They hide silver here. Treasure, sir.
Private Lutz, it's been a profitable day for you. Not only have you learned the crosses are made of nickel, not silver, but you have earned yourself a place on first watch all week. Get out!
He wanted
to.
At
the same time,
writer. I'm talking about the writer. I'm talking about the writer almost. Can
you believe in God when he has allowed the entire world to be destroyed? It's also one of those kind of things. So from the perspective of how could one believe in a God when the entire world gets destroyed except for me, essentially?
Yeah.
In I Am Legend with Will Smith, the way they started it, they showed it was a measles virus that we had genetically engineered to get rid of cancer, but it backfired.
Surprise, surprise, you're saying perhaps we shouldn't monkey with
it's like, okay, yeah. You can see something like that.
Yes.
Engineering.
RNA.
Some RNA engineering or something.
Yeah. Apropos much.
This is the Twilight Zone.
I see why I hadn't rewatched the Will Smith one since 2007 or 2008, when it hit HBO or whatever. It didn't do it for me. It was watching it again, and it's not Will Smith. It's not Will Smith. Will Smith can absolutely make me cry. He has the capacity to act his face off. And in this movie, if anything, maybe that's a little bit, he was a little bit, had that kind of depressed listlessness of the book character.
He was still trying to take it as a scientist, he could still win, he could still... And in the book, he had just kind of, meh.
And in the book, they had the crazy thing where he'd been bitten by a bat in Panama that he was pretty sure was...
When she turned into this hideous, leathery bat thing, she drained me of my blood, giving me the curse of eternal life, and thus making me a bloodthirsty creature of the night.
A vampire, because he thinks that the original ones could turn into animals, and that just now that the bacterial one, it was one of those things.
I just shout, bat! Human form!
Wait, what are you writing here? What are you... Should this have gotten, crossed out in one of the redrafts, or just let it slide, just let it slide? Bitten by a bat, huh? Bats, always bats in there somewhere. Omega Man would have been a great movie if they had made Lisa. Whatever. Okay, get rid of my Ruth. Let's not have. Or you could add in a Lisa. Give me my Ruth. I would love to have two ladies fighting over Charleton Heston. That could have been fun. But how badly she was written. The dialogue. Oh.
Don't turn, just stand. When I want you to turn, I'll turn you on or off, up or around. I'll turn you. Now cool it.
Yeah.
Oh.
In the Charleton Heston one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it was real bad.
She's holding a gun on him when they're doing some sort of...
Run this thing, you understand? But I'm the ramrod. Don't screw up. I know how to roll, but it's hard on the elbows.
Bike stunt. And the bike stunt would have been cool. It was impressive. They're going downstairs. They're doing a bunch of really dangerous stuff on a motorcycle. She's supposed to be holding a pistol on him. It's like, oh, my Lord, have mercy. This is ridiculous. This is just... Well, but it's any time that I see any heavy dialogue that's...
the new age.
Whenever you're trying to date yourself, whenever you're putting a bunch of modern speak...
All re-envisioning of this story, so, it's not going to be the story. You'll never get that 1950s story, but also the story was an anti-communist post-war story, so you're never going to...
If I'd known we were going to a beatnik joint for coffee and word jazz, I'd have worn my black tights.
I agree with you there. And so let's just put that aside. In 1971, a honky Charleton Heston, and even you can do the interracial romance, even though it definitely wasn't in the book. Fine, let's just ignore all that. I'm actually okay with that whole story. If she had been written with dialogue that could stand the test of time, there are plenty of other 70s movies that you could watch, like, play Misty for me.
Don't you like me?
You're a very nice girl.
But who needs nice girls?
But again, cultural norms. You're appealing. It's the same. They all do it. It's the appeal to the culture.
Even if you're going to change the story from the book story or the original movie story, I want you to tell me a good story and try to make it timeless. I could tweak half a dozen things with the Charleton Heston one, and it'd be great. Like that whole romance scene, he's saving her brother, but then she's distracting him with booze and trying to seduce him.
How about a break?
Well.
When he's supposed to be saving her brother from becoming a zombie? You would think that would be a concerning issue, that she would not trying to distract him.
Family.
God, I forgot to keep the fuel up in the generator. They'll be into the garage.
And then one of the bad guys almost breaks in because he let the generator run out. Okay. You're done, bud. You're not keeping a tight ship. You might regain access to getting some ass, but ass is done for tonight. You have failed as a man on multiple levels. And even after the bad guy nearly comes in, again, he just barely shoots him and kills him, like knocks him back into the...
You all right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay. Now, what's this stuff about me being the only girl in the world?
Giving him the old rough and tumble under the sheets while her brother's dying in the other room, and he just failed to keep the generators running. Call me setting the bar a little high for the apocalypse. It makes her that cheesy, hypersexual...
No, Hoodie, no. I got to say the nay no, my brother.
The 70s blaxploitation. Sometimes blaxploitation could be funny when it's like everybody involved is having a good time and knows they're doing it, like the Shaft movies.
You can't beat a hoe with a belt. They like that shit.
Sorry. Did my card hit your card?
Everybody's in on the joke. But this just seemed demeaning. And if you had made her a regular white chick, it probably wouldn't have aged like sour milk. Which means that you wrote a really bad character. But it's still my favorite one out of all of them. Because he's got a bit of the scientist cowboy, even if he dies like Jesus in the fountain.
Like, not even trying to hide it. Yeah.
It's so bad.
Jesus.
There's no chill. You know, they're just like, no, do it harder. Just really
Cross
spread
his
out.
legs, no.
Yeah. Come on, Charles. Come on. Just like you're really nailed up there. Are you sure? Are you sure, guys? Yeah, let's do it all the way. Let's do it once more. Oh, man. The 70s, huh? Okay. You just doubled down on that. And you probably don't even remember the kid's jacket. But the doctor kid with his jacket that had the bird, the fist flipping off the bird, that jacket pissed me off the whole movie. You know what I would do? If I was Biff in the time machine and you could go back in time and do one thing that could have no real butterfly effect, it couldn't make you rich, couldn't do anything, you couldn't stop an assassination, I would just go back and slap the piss out of that whoever did the costuming, whoever picked that jacket, I would just find them somewhere in the market and slap the piss out of them for no reason. That's it. That's what I would do with my Biff. No consequences, but you can have no gain. Back to the Future ride. Oh, I hated that jacket. No, the worst thing about the Vincent Price movie was Vincent Price. If they'd had Vincent Price playing his friend, which is supposed to be kind of like a chubby Jewish guy, even though Vincent Price isn't chubby, it would have...
I am Princess Vespa, daughter of Roland, king of the Druids.
Oh, that's all we needed. A Druish princess. Funny. She doesn't look Druish.
Vincent Price he's got that vampire Vincent Price way about him, but I don't buy him having been in Panama.
You say it's fair to say that the story all around just wasn't a fantastically awesome story.
No.
It was just kind of mid.
For being mid, it had 3 movies badly made
that
off
cow
of it.
3 times, so.
And not once did they talk about communism.
America, built to last. That's right. No, that's right. They'll be flying that flag all night. Red, white, and blue.
Thank you for joining us today. We really do appreciate your time. I'm Lorelei, and this is
Space Deviant.
And together we are Southern Fried Cinema Siblings. And remember, the most important story is the story you tell yourself, so
make it a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. You're still here, are you? Well, why don't you make yourself useful? Click the share button. Click the subscribe button. May as well go ahead and click for the next episode, too.